podcast show for business owners and managers who are passionate about developing people and growing a successful business. And now here's your host, Alistair Booth from the HR Booth.
Welcome to our latest podcast. So today is National Sickie Day. So the podcast today is actually a podcast all about National Sickie Day, really. So thanks for tuning in. So National Sickie Day is a day, I think it was first used way back in 2011 when the term was used, and it was after research found that today is when most employees are likely to call in sick. Some say it's due to a combination of factors, including things like seasonal illness, poor weather, and perhaps increased anxiety and depression. And others say it kind of relates to the kind of post-Christmas blues and the first payday after Christmas. And some even say it's a myth. So what we're going to do today is really just have a chat around that in this podcast. So how can you as an employer, I suppose, differentiate between genuine illness and other reasons for absence? So some of the things that we help our clients with at the moment include things like kind of clear absence policies, certainly for kind of longer term absences. You know, you'll look to get a fit note from the doctor, so that will be something that your employee would have to send you. So normally that's for an absence that's 7 days or more. You would look at return to work interviews. So what that essentially means is when someone has been off on the first day back, you do a return to work interview. And I think a lot of kind of SME businesses especially seem to kind of miss a trick with this, because I think there's perhaps a perception that that's something that you only do when someone's been off a long time. But in actual fact, if someone's only been off 1 day, you should still be doing a return to work interview to establish the reasons they were off, check that they're okay, but if a kind of welfare kind of check in, and then update them on anything that they needed to kind of know about from the day that they've kind of missed at work. Also look for kind of regular kind of patterns. So is it Mondays are taken off? Is it kind of Fridays? Is it after a kind of payday, for example? So look for different kind of trends around that. And then what is also quite important is just to understand people's kind of personal circumstances. So there might be a kind of real valid reason that people are taking kind of time off. So you don't know what's going on in kind of people's personal lives. So again, that's one of the reasons that you want to do a return to work interview, but also more importantly, you want to be doing regular kind of check-ins with your team during the course of the working month anyway, just so you can build up that relationship and get to know them. So if they have got something going on outside the work, they feel comfortable kind of sharing that with you. Other things to kind of think about. So what kind of proactive steps can you as an employer take to reduce kind of sickness days? So you might want to kind of look at things that you can do in the business to promote employee well-being. So we do things in our own kind of team around regular kind of walk-in. So we did introduce a kind of formal kind of walk-in talk, and then the kind of team kind of really drove that to a certain extent, where we didn't have to kind of set a day a month to do that. It's something we're doing on a regular basis with when the team are in the office. So that kind of helps with well-being. So getting out of the office, a little bit of fresh air, and kind of communicating with kind of team members. So there might be other initiatives that you can think about around employee well-being. As I said earlier, encourage communication. So regular kind of check-ins with your team, kind of create an open communication culture within your business. And then where possible, look at kind of flexible kind of working options. So that's all stuff that you could do that could perhaps help reduce kind of sickness days as well. And then kind of provide mental health support. So that might be through an employee assistance program. That's certainly something that we do in our own business. And we've kind of helped a number of our clients introduce an employee assistance program as well. And you might also want to think about occupational health kind of techniques around that as well. So some occupational health services where people can come into the business and do a talk or a briefing on that particular topic, or carry out kind of health surveillance type checks as well. What types of policies should you have in place to try and minimise sick days? So this is something we help our clients with on a daily basis. So a sickness absence policy, a return to work kind of process, and make sure that your kind of managers are trained on how to conduct effective return to work interviews, a health and safety policy, some guidance around kind of flexible working, so a policy around that, a mental health and wellbeing policy, and looking at a disciplinary and probably unauthorised kind of absence policy as well. So that's certainly things that you want to kind of have in your business to help you kind of minimise sick days in the future. How can management support employees who are off ill? So really important to maintain regular communication, and that's not to be, checking up on people. That's to have a genuine kind of interest and offer that kind of support. Come up with our kind of return to work plan as well. So, if people have been off long term, it sometimes feels quite difficult coming back into the workplace because they perhaps feel nervous about that. There's maybe some anxieties kind of crept in. They've maybe got a perception that people in the business maybe think bad of them for taking time off. So you want to try and overcome these kind of hurdles and these kind of barriers. So what you want to do is come up with a return to work plan that kind of allows them to kind of build that up in small steps and small stages. Provide access to an employee assistance programme that I've kind of mentioned, and obviously if it's someone who's been off long-term sick, you definitely want to involve an occupational health professional who can give you some really kind of good advice around the support, adjustments and recommendations that you need to put in place, but also what your employee needs to put in place as well. And then obviously what you'd need to kind of consider is if someone in your team has gone off and you're part of a small team, then it's thinking about the impact that the workload might have on the team who remain. So, reallocating that kind of workload where appropriate, but also just checking in on the welfare of your team members who are still in the business, because that could have a detrimental impact as well if they are perhaps taking on additional kind of work in the short term. How should employers approach long-term sickness and absence? So, you need to make sure you comply with employment legislation. So regular kind of contact as well. Some good practice around that. Probably get some advice from an HR professional. So, something we do on a regular basis. So encourage you, if it's not the HR booth, then certainly get some independent HR advice on that anyway. Create a support plan, and also make sure that everything that you do in terms of any meetings, any conversations on the telephone, anything like that at all is kind of documented, because that's something you might need to refer to on a later date. We support our clients with that all the time, so whether it's short-term absence or long-term absence, our team at the HR booth are well versed on sickness absence, unauthorised absence, and taking kind of businesses through that process. So if that's something you need some support with, and we're well equipped to kind of help you with that, to give you the skills and that support and that knowledge to kind of manage sickness absence in your business. So hopefully that's given a wee insight, and just in terms of sickness absence, hopefully National Sickie Day isn't something that's going to impact on your business, and hopefully it is kind of seen as something that is, is a bit of a myth. But obviously this time of year, people are taking kind of time off for various things. Other things actually just that has came to me you might want to think about is things like, seasonal kind of flu vaccination. That's something you could perhaps offer as a benefit as well. So that maybe mitigates that kind of risk. So there's different kind of health things that you can kind of put in place to support your employees. But if you've got any questions on sickness absence, whether it's kind of short-term, long-term or unauthorised, that's something we can help you with. You can contact us in the usual places, which is through the website, which is www.thehrbooth.co.uk, or if you want to contact us via email, you can do so via info@thehrbooth.co.uk. Hopefully that's been of interest, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thanks for listening.